But if you say specific words and phrases, suddenly it's like conversation goes out the window. Evidence, proof, facts, statistics, science, none of it matters. It's like, this is the reaction that you're supposed to have, and that's it. Hello, welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. On my channel, I like to just give my opinion and perspective on things that are happening today, issues that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us that are trying to raise kids in the insanity known as today's society. We are not CEOs of big corporations, we are not part of the mainstream media, and we do not live in the Hollywood bubble. We are also not politicians in Washington, D.C., but we do have to live with the decisions being made and the narrative being pushed by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If you feel like that describes you, please like this video, share this video, leave a comment below. Also, please subscribe to my channel. All of these things help me to grow my channel and reach more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides that I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So something that I wanted to talk about today was not necessarily a specific issue, but a theory that I have had rolling around in my brain for the last couple of weeks. And you can tell me if you think I'm absolutely crazy or if there's something to it. I know at one point or another, many of us feel like I'm living in some kind of alternate universe. Facts don't really seem to matter a whole lot, and things that are completely insane now seem to be reality. And it's become increasingly difficult to have conversations with people that fall on the other side of the political aisle or just disagree with you in general, because it doesn't even feel like we have reality in common anymore. And I know that if you're watching this, you have felt this frustration at some point. But not only just the frustration, but feeling completely dumbfounded when you try to bring facts and evidence into a conversation and it gets completely ignored. Like the person that you're talking to, that you're showing these facts and evidence to, they're acting like you're not even talking. And it is the most bizarre feeling of my life. Let me give you a couple of examples. So, of course, we all remember back in the summer of 2020 when the death of George Floyd happened. And BLM and Antifa took to the streets to push this narrative that pretty much the sole purpose of police departments was to hunt Black people, specifically Black men. And that pretty much police officers, it was just like a sport for them to go out and hunt Black men, and that Black men were just dying in the masses due to police brutality. And this was the narrative. That those of us on the other side of it, like, we acknowledged the way that George Floyd died, and the actions of Derek Chauvin were just completely sad and heartbreaking, and they never should have happened. And, you know, the way that he used his knee to subdue George Floyd, you know, from what I can tell, was completely unnecessary. In my very unprofessional, you know, untrained, I've never been a police officer before, but what I can tell from the outside looking in, completely unnecessary. So we all agreed on that. We all agreed on that. And we also acknowledge that if there are bad police officers in police departments, that they shouldn't be in that job, that it's a title and a job that requires people to use the best of the best judgment, to not abuse their power, to not have, you know, political biases or biases towards skin colors or anything like that, that we really want them to be focused on the law and, you know, and really make their judgments based on that alone. So those are all things that at least I thought we agreed on. But when we wanted to talk about statistics and what could be proven and what evidence shows, and how few unarmed Black men are actually killed by police statistically, which is less than 10 a year across the whole country. And keep in mind, unarmed does not mean non-threatening. So, you know, we have to look at those situations and see exactly what was happening. But when we brought this evidence to the forefront and said, hey, like statistically, you know, police officers are not out there hunting black men. It was like, we couldn't say that without being called a racist. We couldn't say what evidence and statistics showed without being targeted and even threatened and harassed in some way, which was just absolutely bizarre. It's like, this is not what's being shown. This is not what statistics are showing. Like, this is not what the evidence says. You know, we can agree that this is a horrific event, but you know, the narrative that you're using to go into different cities and create total, to wreak havoc and create total devastation on innocent people is just, it doesn't hold up to what the facts actually show us. Another example is when it comes to the topic of abortion. So when someone is convinced that you cannot advocate for women's rights unless you support abortion, you can't point out the fact to them that as someone who is pro-life, I am for every single choice that you as a pro-choice person are fighting for, that stand for. Like, we agree on like every single choice, except one. There's only one choice that we disagree on, and I do not support the choice to kill your baby. That is the one thing. We can produce images and science that shows that babies are human beings in the womb, that they are fully formed, that they have their fingers and toes and their eyelashes and their hair, that they can feel pain, that earlier and earlier that they can survive outside of the womb. Not only that, the facts about what abortion does statistically, what is proven it does to women's psychology and their mental health and their emotional health, and even the physical trauma that it causes. No matter what we bring to the table, no matter what we show as the horrifying brutality of what abortion procedures are, it doesn't seem to matter. Pro-abortionists, no matter how much evidence you bring to the table and what you show them and what you prove, they pretend you're like you're not even talking. And that everything that you've said and shown them is not real, that it actually doesn't exist. I mean, at least that's how it feels. It's like, this is what I'm putting right in front of you. Like, I am showing you what I'm saying, and that what you have been led to believe is not true. And it's like yelling at a brick wall. It just blows my mind. I'll give you one more example. This whole thing where, what was it, a week ago, where Biden got up on this national stage, you know, looking like he was speaking from the pit of hell and trying to label Republicans as this extremist threat. And trying to put literally every single thing that the left has done and condoned and incited, and said that that's what Republicans are doing, whether it be political violence or lawlessness or contempt for the Constitution. Despite months of rioting and chaos, and the numerous members of Congress on camera telling people to take the streets and get in the faces of people that disagree with you, and saying, you know, that they're going to do what they're going to do, and just, you know, what was it Chris Cuomo said, that since when do protests need to be peaceful? And, you know, just the endless footage that we have of them condoning this or excusing it, or sometimes just ignoring it, pretending that it wasn't even happening. Months and months and months and months of this, and saying that that's what Republicans are doing. That's what Republicans stand for. And people believed it. Not everybody, but there's a large group of people that took his words and said, yeah, that's real. And you're going, how can you possibly believe that? How can you possibly look at the evidence that is right in front of you? Like, this is something that went on for such a long time, and you know exactly who is responsible for it. Yet when Biden gets up there and says, this is what MAGA Republicans stand for, knowing full well that that's not true, that people will believe it. And it's almost like we're living in some kind of Twilight Zone. So, you know, we see this time and time again. If you pick any issue, and it feels like no matter what you say, no matter what proof you have or evidence you have or what science says or what's, you know, what can be shown right in front of somebody, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It just, like I said, it honestly just feels like yelling at a wall, because you're pointing out blatant proof that what they've been led to believe is untrue, yet the facts don't matter. It doesn't matter. And they continue to respond with hostility and with anger and with even threats sometimes. And you're like, what the heck is going on? It's bizarre. It's some kind of alternate reality. Like it's like living in the upside down. So this kind of thing really hit me, I feel like probably in the first year or two of Trump's presidency. I had friends, people that I've known for years and years and years, that I knew that, we disagreed on some issues, but ultimately, like, I've known them for a long time and they know me. And suddenly, they were grasping onto this media narrative that Trump was this awful and corrupt person, and how he used Russian interference to meddle with the 2020 election. With the 2016 election. And whatever the media was saying about the right and about Trump, they were grabbing onto that. And I would see people on my Facebook page, like I said, people that knew me, saying, anybody who voted for Trump needs to unfriend me. Or anyone who voted for Trump, you're just as evil and corrupt as he is. And I'm like, seriously? Like, you know me. You know that, like, I am a good person. I'm raising a good family. We work hard. We try to be honest in the things that we're doing. We pay our taxes. Like, it just blew my mind. It just absolutely blew my mind that they were latching on to whatever the media was saying about not only Trump, but the people that voted for him, regardless of who these people were in your life, in their lives, whether it be like your grandmother or your cousin or your best friend that you've known forever. They were grasping onto that and saying, if the media says that you're an evil, corrupt person, I believe it. And it just, I think all of us have experienced that to an extent, going like, you've known me for so long, and you really believe what the media is saying about a group of people based on how they voted. Speaking of being completely anti-constitutional, but it blew my mind. So it just had never occurred to me, as much as I disagreed with Obama on pretty much all of his policies and everything he stood for, it never occurred to me to associate the people that I knew that supported him with who he was as a person, who I thought he was as a person, and say that because I think that he was truly evil and corrupt, that they must be evil and corrupt too. So that kind of mindset just is so foreign to me. It's just something that I don't relate to at all. So after all that being said, this is what leads me to my thought of the day. So we use the word brainwashing a lot. And we use it a lot. And I kind of think it's probably been overused. It's just become one of those things that doesn't really have a lot of meaning anymore, even though it's accurate in my opinion. We also use the word triggered a lot. We can say a word or phrase and suddenly, the left is just unhinged and they just become completely unglued and lose control of their emotions, and they're crying and they're screaming and need hugs and cookies and whatever else. But I think honestly that there's something to that. So if you've ever seen the movie Captain America Winter Soldier, I'm a pretty big Marvel fan, at least I used to be, and then Mark Ruffalo and Chris Evans and pretty much every actor on those movies is completely woke and has just completely gone off the rails, so I really don't support that franchise anymore. But before all of the craziness came out, I love Marvel movies, I love action movies, I love superhero movies, so I've seen all of them, but go with me on this. So if you've seen Captain America Winter Soldier, where Captain America's best friend Bucky is captured by the enemy and then programmed to become the enemy of Captain America. Even though they've been best friends forever, they've been through, war together, they've seen all these things, Bucky's captured and programmed to be the enemy of Captain America. And then he's used as a weapon to fight Captain America. And the method they use is programming his brain to respond to certain words and phrases. And when he hears those words, he can't control his reaction or how he treats his friend. He just automatically starts attacking his friend like he doesn't even know him. And in his mind, his friend, who he's known his whole life, is now the enemy. I have, if you haven't seen this movie, which no judgment, I'm gonna play about a minute of this clip. It's about 60 seconds long, but I think the whole thing is relevant. And then I think you're gonna see exactly where I'm going with this. So here's that.
Желание. Żawoj.
Stop.
12.
Stop.
Rozwiedź. 5. 9. Dobre kacze, syni. Возвращение на родину. 1. Грузовый вагон.
Солдат. Я готов отвечать.
So I don't know if you just had like a aha moment, like a light bulb went on, but it really, like I said, we joke about the word triggered. And we use it towards the left and we're like, oh my gosh, like I can't, I can just say this one word or phrase and suddenly they're just completely off the rails. And it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There's no rational thinking behind it. There's no logic. There's no sense. It's like, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you, but certain words or phrases and suddenly like it's the end of the world. I mean, you get reactions like this. Like if you talk about abortion, you can say that a baby is a baby no matter what, and you get this.
My choice! My choice! My choice!
So I'm just convinced we need to burn it all down. Because at this point, I don't know what else we're supposed to do. I'm advocating for violence.
You can talk about how guns save lives, how good guys with guns stop bad guys with guns, how we give guns to police officers and military and security guards because guns save lives, and you can show all the statistics about people, using firearms to defend themselves against harm, and people still react like this.
Give me my idols because you guys are celebrating his life!
It was a terror. I'm sure it was a terror.
This is not okay!
You're alive! Shut up!
Dead. Up against kids at 5 feet. It may be funny to you, motherfucker, but it's not funny to me.
You can talk about how the data shows how kids' brains are not developed enough to make permanent life decisions, and how there's evidence of the severe mental impacts on young adults as they get older and realize how crazy it is that the adults around them allowed them to mutilate their body and to make such a permanent decision at such a young age when they're old enough to reflect on it and look back. And you still get reactions like this. And I think that there's a whole list of words that can be considered triggers. I mean, honestly, we know the word Trump. If you talk about democracy, if you talk about if the word assault weapon is said, or misinformation, or racism, or the phrase right to choose, or transphobic, I think when these words are spoken, whether it be from the media or from a public platform, especially by particular like government officials, it's like it triggers their base into this hostile reaction. And I think that's what's happening with the phrase MAGA Republicans. It's a word, it's a phrase that they're using to associate with lawlessness and violence and chaos and threats to democracy. And you know, whatever else, fill in the blank. And it's being repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated with the associations with these things that are going to scare people and trigger them into a hostile response. And there's no reasoning. There's no ability to say, what you've been led to believe about, you know, the people associated with this phrase is completely false. What you've been led to believe about, you know, people associated with this phrase being in danger is false. It's like they hear that word, that phrase, and trying to say, hey, that's not true. Like, I am not a threat to democracy. I am not a danger to you. I am not somebody who wishes you harm. It's like going in one ear and out the other. It's like the hostile reaction takes over and it's impossible to reason. It's impossible to have a discussion. So let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm completely off the rails on this, or if you really think that there's some kind of legitimacy to this idea, because I think it's more than just being brainwashed. I honestly think that this is a matter of programming. It's a matter of, you know, getting a bunch of words together that are associated with different issues that are important to people. But if you say specific words and phrases, suddenly it's like conversation goes out the window. Evidence, proof, facts, statistics, science, none of it matters. It's like, this is the reaction that you're supposed to have, and that's it. Let me know what you think on that. Maybe it sounds crazy, but you know what? A lot of things sound crazy these days. So maybe that makes it a little easier to put crazy ideas out there. I could be completely wrong and off the rails, which is totally fine. But I appreciate you being here with me through this little brainstorm that I'm having today. Please like and subscribe. Help me to grow this channel. Being a conservative on YouTube is extremely challenging in and of itself, so I need all the help I can get to get the ball rolling. And I would love to hear from you, more topics that we need to discuss, just, you know, from a real person perspective. And I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you being here. I'll see you next time.